What's up? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. I'm a former pro pitcher. In today's video, let's talk about when you're waiting for your growth spurt. This can be a really tough thing for younger players who are in middle school, high school. When you're, 30, 40 pounds smaller and 4, 5, 6 inches shorter than your peers, it can be really, really mentally difficult to stay positive while you're waiting for that growth spurt. So let's talk through growth spurts and some of the mental challenges and things that you can do while you're waiting for yours. All right, so first thing, it's important to remember that a big difference in ability level in the younger levels of baseball is developmental age versus your biological age. So what this means is that if you're 12, you might look like you're a 15-year-old, and so your developmental age, like how physical you are for your actual age, it might be more like 15 than a normal size 12-year-old. And you could be 15 years old and also kind of be the size of a 13-year-old. So these gaps in like how big you are and how developed you are versus how actually old you are, they can be really big. And those tend to level out in college when, pretty much everyone stops growing and you've kind of like absorbed all the benefits that you'll get out of strength training and all that stuff. College is where the playing field really levels. But in high school and middle school, the biggest, strongest kids, the ones who just sort of grow up faster, they really get a big head start, even though you can catch them later, which we'll talk about in this video. So the big thing, and this is a huge trap with social media, is that no matter where you are in your journey, don't directly compare yourself to any other player. If you see someone on Instagram or wherever, and they're really, really good for your age, say it's like a 16-year-old throwing 90 miles per hour or just hitting mammoth home runs, just remember that that kid's journey is very different from yours. And everyone needs to find their own path up the mountain, so to speak. So like I was a late bloomer. I didn't get a college scholarship. I threw like around 80 as a college freshman, and I was throwing in the low to mid 90s, 5 years later. So there's always hope, and late bloomers have a lot of stuff to still focus on, which I want to cover now. So if you're a late bloomer and if you're small for your age and you're waiting for your growth spurt, that's going to include you. Understand that late bloomers tend to bloom really fast, and it's an exciting time. I had a kid that we trained in my baseball academy who was like 5'6" and like 140 pounds, like all the way up until his junior year in high school. And it was really tough for him because by junior year, everyone really starts shooting up and starts to look more like a man than a boy. And he was still definitely a boy. His senior year, he grew something like 6 inches in like the last 18 months of his high school career. He grew something like 6 inches, and I think he was like 6'2" and like 190 or 200 pounds as a high school senior. So he really hit his growth spurt late, and it was like explosive. And he went from like little kid to a really big, strong kid, big, strong man in a really short period of time. So understand that even if you feel like you have a ton of ground to catch up, you just have to wait your turn. And that when you do bloom as a late bloomer, it can be really awesome and really exciting, and you can go from a little bit to a lot in a really short amount of time. But so while you're still waiting on that growth spurt, here are the things you need to do. Number one, focus on your skills. If you have an excellent swing, if you're small, that swing is still going to be there when you hit that growth spurt. So focus on your pitching mechanics, focus on your fielding mechanics, focus on your footwork as a catcher, your blocking skills, and obviously your swing as a hitter. Focus on the mechanics of your game because you can always control that. Even if you don't have a ton of pop because you're not real big yet, that pop will come when the growth spurt comes. So number one, focus on your skills. Number two, focus on your grittiness and your baseball IQ. So can you be the best base runner on the team? Can you be really excellent at reading pitchers and stealing bases? That kind of stuff is always within your control as well. So control as much of the baseball stuff as you can while you're waiting for that growth spurt. And the nice thing about being someone who has to really struggle early is that you end up really maximizing a lot of these things. You end up out hustling a lot of teammates who are bigger and stronger than you because you have to, right? You end up being a better base runner because you're not as fast. You end up getting better jumps because you're not as fast, right? So all these things that you have to be really, really excellent at to sort of catch up and bridge that gap. When you hit that growth spurt, you still retain those things. You're still an excellent base runner, even though your 60 time went from super slow to like pretty fast, right? You still have an amazing swing. You still have amazing plate discipline, even though your bat speed, which was really poor before, is now like excellent and you're smashing the ball. So all those things, not just the raw skills like your actual swing mechanics, but also your grittiness, how much you hustle, all of those things, your baseball IQ, they really, I mean, they're going to stick with you. So when you control those early, and this is the positive that comes out of being a late bloomer, is that, again, you have to control that stuff. So be the grittiest player you can be the best defender you can be the best hustler on your team, and all that stuff's going to stick with you, and you're going to be incredible when that growth spurt does hit. Also, remember that a good team doesn't need 9 power hitters in a row. So you don't have to be Aaron Judge to be a contributor to your team. So even if you're smaller, and this is actually what that small kid that I was referring to earlier did, he actually had one of the highest on base percentages on the team because he had an amazing plate discipline. So he was walking I think he walked like 20 times in like 30 games. So even though he didn't have that many hits because he just was really small and had a tough time getting it out of the infield sometimes, he was on base all the time. And if you've ever read the book Moneyball, we as coaches knew that he was still providing a lot of value for the team. So just remember that you don't have to be the power hitter. You don't have to do all that like high velocity stuff necessarily for your team to still be successful. So if you can walk, you can get on base, you can play amazing defense. Just remember, you can be the best 7, 8, or 9 hole hitter that you can be now. And again, when the growth spurt comes, which I've harped on a bunch, you're going to shoot up that lineup and suddenly you're going to find yourself to be one of the top hitters on the team. And lastly, try to stay positive. Really just focus on the stuff you're doing day to day and week by week, and it will start to turn around. And by the time that growth spurt really, like, you're pretty far into it, you're going to forget how hard it was. So really you just need to keep putting one foot in front of the other, stay positive, and you're going to see that, the velocity tick up, the speed tick up, and then you're going to be like kind of amazed and you'll feel like an overnight success, whereas in reality, it took a long time and a lot of waiting. I didn't go from 80 miles per hour to 94 miles per hour overnight. It was a really slow incremental process, but like one day I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm just like a 90 mile per hour guy. How did that happen? But in reality, it took a bunch of years. So if you're waiting for that growth spurt, just stay positive, keep controlling the stuff that you can control, and put one foot in front of the other. And then when it does happen, you'll look back, kind of laugh on all that stuff, but you'll also be, in a lot of ways, better for it. All right. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Check out my online courses, all that other stuff, the ways to support the channel, and I'll see you here in the next video.